Over the next 19 minutes, I'm going to show you the exact method that I use to find altcoins before they deliver absolutely insane returns. Because after about 7 years of trading and losing countless of money on so-called expert predictions, I realized that about 95% of investors are chasing the wrong signals entirely. So I developed a three-phase approach, one that is so simple that even complete beginners can find these altcoins before they explode at any given moment. Let's get right into it. Here's what I need you to understand. The key to making millions in altcoins is to understand you don't actually start with altcoin. You actually start with Bitcoin and the macro environment. So before we start taking any guesses and placing any investments, the first thing we have to do is evaluate Bitcoin. Now, one of my favorite ways of doing this is to use a simple rainbow chart. Preferably as traders, we want to start placing our bets when price is trading within one of these blue zones. This basically means that Bitcoin is currently undervalued based on where it's been before and where we expect it to go. I mean, according to this website, the blue zone down here is basically a fire sale, and that's exactly what it is. Every single time Bitcoin ran down to this blue zone, we had a small consolidation before a massive bull market. So whenever we're investing, we want to time it with this rainbow chart, either at accumulate, buy, or basically a fire sale. But here's the thing, following this indicator is only the top of the iceberg. Cryptocurrencies are considered a legitimate asset now. It's not just some speculative asset. And all the big institutions, including BlackRock, has now publicly said that Bitcoin is a top revenue source. And here's exactly what I need you to understand. Any narrative starts with demand. People were talking about AI like it was the new iPhone, and they were making headlines literally everywhere. And of course, companies respond to this demand that they're seeing in the real world, and that means stocks started to pump. And later down the line, well, then crypto responded to that same demand, and that made all of these AI coins go absolutely parabolic. In late 2022 and early 2023, that was when AI started to become tangible and usable. And that demand, well, it reflected straight onto the Nvidia price action. The stock went parabolic because Nvidia is basically the backbone of AI nowadays. But here's what's really crazy. Have a look at Render, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with. Render was a massive AI project, and as you guys can see, this really took off in September of 2023, and it produced a return of over 900%. But here's what's crazy. All you had to do was look at the Nvidia price action, figure out why it was going up, and then ask yourself, how can crypto capitalize? And inevitably, you would have stumbled across projects like Render and Fetch AI. Again, Fetch AI started going parabolic in October of 2023, so almost a year later than Nvidia, and it produced a staggering 1,600% in less than a year. Now, this is without a doubt the easiest way to spot narratives before they expand into crypto. But if you understood macroeconomics, you could have made millions. Okay, so here's the thing. In 2022, the inflation in the US went completely out of control. At the peak, we were sitting at 9.1%, and that is absolutely ridiculous. So of course, the Federal Reserve responded with the only logical solution, and that was to aggressively start hiking the interest rate. I mean, what else would they do, right? They basically had to bring up the interest rate from near zero all the way up to 5.5% just to control the inflation. And that right there created a new problem, but also a new opportunity for crypto. People started asking, why would I hold crypto when I can earn 5% annually by just holding treasuries with basically no risk? And that question right there immediately spiked demand for tokenized treasuries, tokenized bonds, and tokenized real estate. Not too long after people started asking these questions, we started seeing projects that immediately filled that demand. Ondo Finance, which I'm sure most of you have heard about, was one of the RWA projects that filled that gap. You see, Ondo was smart. They immediately tokenized US treasuries, and now they're sitting at a market cap of 1.4 billion. Centrifuge was one of the other major RWA projects. And what they did was they came in and they tokenized real-world assets such as loans and invoices. Now, shortly after this, these coins went absolutely parabolic because they found a solution to whatever demand the world had. And all you had to do was, first of all, figure out that there was an actual demand, and then ask yourself which chain is leading the RWA narrative and which tokens captures on that demand. Inevitably, you would have stumbled into one of the early RWA projects and you could have made millions. No matter what narrative we're talking about, every great narrative checks this list. Room to grow, right? The entire narrative has to have a future and it has to have a way to grow. You have to be able to explain the narrative in a singular sentence, and it has to be something that these so-called normies can understand. Here's the key question that you can always ask yourself. Could my parents understand this and invest in just 3 clicks on their phone? If yes, well, then this is probably a good narrative. And if no, well, then you shouldn't risk everything you own. Now, that is true, except one specific type of assets. And what I'm talking about here is, of course, meme coins. We're looking at the Trump coin. In case you've been sleeping under a rock, yes, the US president literally created his own meme coin earlier this year. Now, this wasn't just a small meme coin. I mean, this thing ran to a $14 billion market cap. The problem with Trump coin was it didn't run for that long. I mean, it basically peaked in after just a day and a half of price action. And the majority of people that actually invested in this coin, well, they basically lost money. But here's the thing, the best traders understood that, okay, I'm late to Trump coin, so they did the next best thing. They understood that Trump had not only created a meme coin, but an entire narrative. And because they understood this, well, then these traders were the same people that was super early on Millennia Coin and probably printed millions. And of course, we had Baron Coin as well that only ran to a $460 million market cap. But had you understood that this was a narrative, well, then you could have capitalized on both Millennia Coin and Baron Coin, even though you were late to Trump Coin. Again, the point is you didn't need to be early. You just needed to spot the narrative. Spotting these narratives is one thing, but finding coins that are aligned with that narrative is the next step. I'll show you how to do it even if you're a complete beginner. Step 1, where do you actually find the coins? I have 3 primary websites that I use. The first one being Twitter. It's where crypto information appears first. Builders will tease updates, insiders hint at moves, and new narratives form before they reach YouTube or podcasts. Now, YouTube is where narratives go mainstream, okay? Creators break them down, simplify the hype, and bring in the wider audience after early signals appear on Twitter. Podcast is where the deeper context emerges, okay? Founders, VCs, and analysts explain the ideas behind emerging narratives once they've already started gaining traction. So are you going to be a first mover finding this stuff on Twitter, YouTube, or on a podcast? Are you going to be a first mover finding your information on Twitter, YouTube, or a podcast? No, absolutely not. If you want to be a first mover, well, then you have to, if you want to be one of the absolute first investors of any given narrative, well, then you basically have to refer back to the beginning of the video where I showed you the correlation between the stock market and the crypto market. Here's a side note though, you can actually use AI to help you. Let's use ChatGPT here. I'm going to give him a very simple prompt. Give me the highest potential crypto narratives for 2026 based on a combined analysis of social sentiment and retail trends, developer activity and product launches, VC plus institutional positioning, macro plus geopolitical factors, on-chain data and liquidity flows, real-world tech trends, AI, energy, robotics, etc. So let's send this here and see exactly what he has to say. Okay, so top crypto narratives for 2026 according to ChatGPT. Number 1, institutional Bitcoin and safe haven macro asset accumulation. The combination of institutional flows, ETF infrastructure, and macro/regime hedging demand makes this arguably the most stable structural narrative. It will even give you sub-narratives here. I mean, we can just have a look here. Real world assets, which is basically the RWAs that I just showed you. AI x crypto, again, the AI narrative is still booming. Modular blockchain infrastructure, and deepen and decentralized real-world infrastructure networks. In other words, you can use ChatGPT as a virtual assistant. You can't take its word for everything. In other words, you can use ChatGPT to get an overall idea of the coming narratives, but that doesn't mean you don't have to do your due diligence. Here's the thing, once you start applying all these steps, well, then you will inevitably find a lot of coins. We need to filter through the noise, and here's exactly how I do it. Step number 2, evaluating the upside potential of whatever coin you're looking at. Here's a massive misconception. People evaluate based on price. The truth is, price is basically irrelevant. Market cap is what truly matters. Here's a very basic graph of market caps. Below 10 million is exactly what I would consider very tiny. 10 to 50 million is small, 50 to 100 million is small/medium, 100 million to 500 million is mid, 500 million to a billion is upper mid, and a billion and above is what I would consider large. So if we want those 100x plays, well, then we basically have to find a coin that is in the early stage. So if you're looking for a 100x return on your investment, well, then you basically have to invest within the early stage. That's again anywhere between $1 million and $50 million. That's again anywhere between $1 million and $50 million in market cap. If you have no idea where to find these coins, I like using CoinGecko. It's entirely free and it allows us to filter through all of the coins that we're looking at here. Again, we have thousands and thousands of cryptocurrencies. So I'm going to click the market cap here. And let's say that you're just looking for that home run, that 100x that's going to take you from rags to riches. Well, then let's go to the early stage coins of $1 million to $10 million in market cap. I'm going to click search here. And there we go. Now you have a list of all the coins anywhere between $1 million in market cap and all the way up to $10 million in market cap. And now is where it gets boring, okay? Because you basically have to filter through all of these different coins. Again, right here, we're looking at Arc of Panda. I have no idea what it is, but I have to figure it out if I want to invest in this very project. Already, just based off the website, this is not anything I'm interested in, and you basically have to do this with every single one of the coins. Okay, so let's say you found a coin, it's within the narrative, and you've confirmed the upside potential. There's one misconception that quietly liquidates portfolios, and that's people thinking and asking if a project is great, well then the token will also be great. No, that cannot be further from the truth. A great project doesn't automatically create a great token. You can have the best project in the entire world, but if you haven't gone through step 3, well then you have no idea whether the token is worth investing in. And that is of course to analyze the token scarcity and use case. And that is of course to analyze the token scarcity and the use case of that exact coin. Tokens need two things to perform, okay? It needs scarcity and it needs use case. Let's use BNB as an example because BNB is a great project. So first of all, their website is great. It immediately states what BNB is all about. BNB fuels the BNB chain ecosystem, serving as a premier utility token. That's all I need to know. It basically explained the entire token in a sentence, and that's exactly what you want with a high probability token. Now, what can you do with BNB? And right here you can see, okay, BNB is required to pay transaction fees when interacting with the network. That means if users want to use the BNB network, well, then they need BNB. That right there creates demand for the token, right? And that's exactly what we need in order for the token price to rise. Now, the next thing we need from BNB is scarcity. The total supply is currently 137 million. What you have to understand here is that this supply started at 200 million and their goal is to get it down to 100 million. That creates immense scarcity, and it's one of the reasons why BNB is now sitting at $112 billion in market cap. But here's something else you have to understand. Even if a project and token looks good, the timing matters the most. And that's exactly what we do in step number 4, which is to analyze the chart. Let's use Render as our example. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with it. Render is an AI project that did pretty well. So here's exactly how I evaluate these charts. The two things I'm not going to do is buy if we're in a multi-month downtrend or the coin just had a 3 to 10x pump. That immediately disqualifies any token for me, okay? I'm not going to try and catch a falling knife. However, here's exactly what I am going to do. If price now starts accumulating after a massive downtrend, well then that's exactly when I want to buy. Or if the token is in a healthy uptrend and I can buy the pullbacks, well then that's another great scenario. So again, let's look at Render here, right? Render had a massive downtrend, and this right here is exactly when I will not be buying whatever coin I'm looking at. However, when that massive downtrend ended, well then we got this consolidation, which in my eyes is the accumulation phase. That is exactly when I want to buy, okay? I want to buy at consolidations after a massive downtrend had taken place. And as you can see, Render skyrocketed and it would have given you over a 3,000% return. So now you understand finding projects, evaluating it, and the token. It's time for you to start looking at the bigger picture. What's the long-term potential for this narrative? Which is exactly what step 5 is all about. Evaluate the long-term potential. Let's say you wanted to find the potential for AI coins in 2023. How would you do it? I mean, there were no crypto projects to compare to, and so the world world becomes, there were no crypto projects to compare to, and so the world becomes the comparable. The people that were really early to AI, they had to compare it to things like the revenue of Nvidia, the growth of OpenAI, and the massive GPU shortages. They had to ask themselves, based on the factors that I just showed you, what did the comparable hit at peak? So let's say that our coin has a $20 million market cap and the comparable has a $2 billion market cap. We want to calculate 10 to 20% of the comparable's market cap, which in this case is about 400 million. That means the long-term realistic potential is again a 20x from the current market cap. Now, there's something I need to make very clear. So far, we've only covered the first two, which is the world having a demand and then a narrative within crypto being created on top of that demand. However, there's one more box, and that's called the niche. That's things like AI agents, tokenized treasuries, and real estate. So once you've found your narrative, the next best thing to do is to stay active. In my opinion, AI agents, for example, has great potential next cycle, and that's considered a niche. But I only know that because I stayed active within the AI narrative. So now you've truly found a project with potential. This last step is the one most traders completely skip. And that is to plan your exit in advance. This is arguably as important as your investment to begin with. Now, there are two primary ways that I use to plan my exits. The first one being, again, the rainbow chart, okay? This is just a great way of evaluating Bitcoin, truly. So whenever we start approaching these red or orange zones up here, that is exactly when I start to take my profit. But this is only one piece to the puzzle. The next indicator I'm about to show you is basically what tells me exactly when I need to exit. And that is what we call the pi cycle top indicator, okay? It's fairly simple. All we do is utilize two different SMAs. And whenever these SMAs cross, as you guys can see, well, then there's a high chance of a top being in. And whenever these SMAs cross, well, then there's a very high chance that the top is now in. Have a look at this, right? 2017 top predicted. Boom, we move on to the next one. 2021 top predicted. And right now they're very far apart, which means the top is likely not in anytime soon. And going back to the rainbow chart, we can see the exact same thing because these SMAs and that top signal as a whole basically only happens whenever the rainbow chart is trading within one of the top bands. And that's my strategy, right? I combine the two. So whenever we're trading in the top bands and I get a pi cycle top signal, well, then that right there is my one and only signal to exit my investments. Now, if you want to find more altcoins, including the three most interesting ones that I'm personally looking to invest in this bull run, well, then I highly recommend that you click the first link in the description and join my free community. Inside the community, you will not only get access to all of my different altcoin picks, but also my personal trades and my weekly outlooks. That's right, I will give you my trading and investment perspective to make sure that you capitalize as much as possible. You will also get access to an entire course that will basically take you from nothing to a profitable trader. And just to be clear, this community is 100% free. I've already made millions in crypto. I can pay my rent and I can do whatever I please. And my mission now has become building the single largest and most profitable community the crypto space has ever seen. And so by making it free, well, then I basically allow anyone to join. Click the link down below and I will see you on the inside.